I'm starting a new series called One Piece Wednesdays. If you've been staring at that 1100 plus episode mountain like it's Mount Everest while you're wearing sandals, you know what? I was in the same boat years ago, but don't sweat it. I'm your guy who's about to turn that whole saga into snackable bites so you can actually enjoy the cookout without feeling lost. What's good, my anime and manga nerds? Welcome to the first ever drop of One Piece Wednesdays. We're gonna be slicing through the Straw Hat Saga arc by arc, keeping the must-know stuff and, kind of tossing away the filler fluff. Now, if at any point during this series you're like, nah, I want to watch this on my own, by all means, bounce over to the anime and thank me later. These recaps are for the homies that want the full picture, but don't want to put down that level of commitment. And that's totally fine. I know a ton of people like that. Matter of fact, I have actually been locked into the One Piece series ever since I was 14 years old. I'm currently 27, so I have had 13 years of brain rot week to week, or I should say 13 years of dedication. I've rewatched this entire series 7 times, and every single time that I rewatched the show, I actually catch little nuggets that I didn't see before. I'm also fully caught up to the manga where it is today, so in the future when I am finished with One Piece Wednesdays and I've fully caught everyone up, I might be able to move over to week chapter reviews if that's something that you're interested in. And if so, don't forget to smash that like button and leave a comment below and let me know if that's something that you'd like, and we can definitely get that going. Real quick, before we dive into episode 1 of One Piece Wednesday, I do want to drop a little bit of information for you guys who do want to watch One Piece but don't want to go through the entire 1100 episode journey. If you're the type of person who wants to get the entire full story, but you also don't want to eat up your entire summer, I recommend One Piece. It's a legendary fan edit of the show where it trims out all of the fat from the series and still keeps the fire. And yes, I will admit that hunting down One Piece is a little bit of a chore, so you're going to be going on a side quest trying to figure out how you can watch it. I know me personally, I struggled with finding One Piece so I could show it to another person that I wanted to get into the show. But if you do choose to put in the work, it is one of the smoother ways that you can get through the entirety of One Piece. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the One Piece editors out there. But if you don't feel like playing detective, no problem. I have 2 backup routes for you. Option number 2, you could just ride with me on One Piece Wednesdays. I'm gonna be packing every crucial detail, every lore drop, every emotional nuke, and every wait, that's why that mattered moment, so you're never lost again. Think of this series as your VIP backstage pass. And option number 3, the One Piece live action on Netflix. It's actually way more loyal to the manga than you'd expect. And sure, it does lean into the corniness a little bit harder, and those dramatic close-up shots can be a little out of the ordinary, but as a die-hard fan, me personally, I ate it up. It's a great alternative if you want to see live-action actors, yelling at the top of their lungs about their dreams. There is a 4th option in the works, and that's for those of you who want to wait for the One Piece. It is the official remake of the One Piece show, dropping on Netflix in early 2027. I believe the release date just dropped recently, but essentially you're getting a collaboration between Wit Studio, the same people that brought you Attack on Titan and Spy Family, and Netflix. They're coming together to recreate the entire show with new animation, new pacing. From what I've heard, they've gutted like 80% of the show, so that way when you watch it, you may be able to digest One Piece a little bit better. However, the only downside to that is season 1 of the One Piece was announced like 2 years ago, and we're finally now getting a release schedule for season 1. So if you do want to wait for the One Piece, it is a viable option, though you're probably going to have gray hair by the time they get to the Elbaf arc. But even still, it is super promising for new fans. But one last thing before we actually set sail, I want to give a huge shout out to the people who've been keeping the One Piece community together. And I'm talking about the Grand Line Review, Brago D Ace, O'Hara, Sive, JD Legend, and a whole bunch of others. Y'all have been my weekly fuel for the last decade plus. Whether it's hidden lore drops, panel breakdowns, theories, these channels kept me locked in every single week for years. So if you're trying to go a little bit deeper after watching these One Piece Wednesday recaps, I would highly recommend them. Absolute W channels. But that being said, there is a gap that I noticed. There are these videos that are like, oh, all of One Piece explained in 200 minutes. Like, bro, be serious. That is not happening. You're gonna be catching vibes at best, not the whole story, especially when you're speedrunning these things. And then on the other hand, you have these extreme, like, 37 hours, everything in One Piece explained. I'm not sitting down for a 37-hour video, respectfully, but that is exactly why I am doing this. I have created One Piece Wednesdays, and I actually coined it from when I tried to get my brother to watch One Piece. I, jokingly named it One Piece Wednesday, and, we finished that about a year ago, but I am bringing it back now as a YouTube series for you guys, just so everyone can get caught up and have the ability to enjoy the rest of One Piece before the actual spoiler of what is the One Piece is dropped, and I know that it's coming soon. I'm going to be breaking down the series one by one, arc by arc, into these little bite-sized drops that actually feel watchable. No rushing, no skipping the heartfelt moments, no leaving you confused about why some random guy is very important like 300 chapters later. Every important story beat, every emotional nuke, every revelation that you get from the show. We're going to be building this thing even if you don't want to watch 1100 episodes or read 1100 chapters. My goal is for you to walk away knowing the story like you actually lived it. But all right, that's enough yapping. Let's kick it off proper. The Romance Dawn arc. This is where the pirate era begins, where a rubber boy dreams bigger than the ocean itself, and where we meet the crew that's gonna steal our hearts. Buckle up, because we're about to make One Piece feel way less intimidating and a whole lot more fun. So let's set sail. This bad boy covers manga chapters 1 through 7 and anime episodes 1 through 4. The manga and anime switch up the structure a bit, but I'm mostly sticking to Oda's original manga flow, and if there's any small nuance or difference, I'll flag it so nobody gets lost. So a quick recap, the arc runs from the second we meet Luffy as a kid all the way until we say goodbye to Kobe at the naval base. Now, who exactly are Luffy and Kobe? I think that's the perfect spot to kick things off, but since we're writing with the manga, let's start with Luffy. The first page of chapter 1, and boom, we get one of the only looks at Gold Roger, right as they're about to execute him. This man drops the most legendary speech in anime history. Wealth, fame, power. You want my treasure? You can have it. I've left it out there for you to find. You'll have to search the entire world for the One Piece. Bro said that, and he lost his head, and instantly turned the whole world into pirates. That single moment kicked off the great pirate era. Super simple concept, but it's the whole reason Luffy exists and why he's chasing that exact same dream. Now, keep the scene locked in the back of your mind. We're coming back to it multiple times as the series progresses, and every revisit hits you with extra context. Now, a quick side note for the manga versus anime heads. Manga straight up tells you that they chopped his head off, while the anime went with a dramatic double spear impale instead. Either way, the vibe is the same. Very iconic. But that speech didn't just start the golden age of piracy. It basically wrote Luffy's entire main character arc before we even meet the kid. And a quick side note for all of my manga readers in the chat, don't skip the cover stories. A lot of the times they drop extra context or straight up full side adventures that are canon to the One Piece world, but never get mentioned in the anime. Lately, they've been sliding some of those spreads into the actual show, but for the most part, there's a whole hidden layer running in the background that you can only catch if you're locked in on every cover page. But like I said before, there's a ton of channels that go into deep dives for things just like this. But me, I'm staying as focused to the actual source material as possible. So if you do want a deeper dive into the cover stories or the small little nuances and theories in the show, I highly recommend you check out those channels. But back to the story, you flip the page and there he is, our first real look at Monkey D. Luffy. This kid is clearly trying way too hard to prove himself to this shady group of pirates. Knife is already in hand, and right off rip, you notice the animation style. Expressions cranked to the absolute max. Luffy pulls a face that no human cheek should be able to make, and that over-the-top energy, it's low-key one of the biggest upsides of the series. Those impossible faces pull the emotion straight out of the character so you feel it with them. It's supposed to be exaggerated, and I personally love it. Now, some folks aren't really into the style, and that's perfectly fine. But back to the scene, Luffy is dead set on showing these pirates that he's the real deal. We don't know who they are yet, but trust, keep these guys in mind because they matter. And a quick manga versus anime note here, the anime skips showing what he actually does here. In the manga though, Luffy, trying to prove his manliness and that he can run with pirates, straight up takes that knife and stabs himself in the cheek. And that's exactly how our boy gets his iconic scar under the eye. After Luffy's daring little test of courage, the scene shifts to a lively tavern where the very crew he's hoping to impress is kicking back and having the time of their lives. This cozy spot turns out to be Makino's bar, and at the center of it stands the captain himself, the legendary red-haired Shanks. It's clear from the start that young Luffy idolizes Shanks and dreams of joining his crew, but Shanks, a pirate of immense renown, gently turns him down. After all, Luffy is still just a child, but undeterred, the party rolls on with laughter, clinking glasses, and pure joy filling the room. Shanks can't resist playfully teasing the eager boy, adding a warm, lighthearted touch to the celebration. And this delightful scene also introduces several key figures who will leave a mark on the story. There's Makino, the gracious owner of the tavern, along with the standout members of Shanks' crew. We meet this sharp-minded vice captain, Ben Beckman. And we catch a good look at the cheerful Lucky Roo in the background, easily spotted in his green striped shirt, with a sturdy build that makes him stand out amid the fun. Everyone is reveling in the moment, but Luffy is still learning the ways of the pirate world. That innocence is about to be tested, as the first real threat of the series bursts through the door. A band of rough mountain bandits storms in, led by the imposing Higuma the Bear. Though Higuma won't return later in the grand adventure, his brief appearance plays a crucial role in shaping Luffy's early experiences and reveals the true depth of Shanks' character. While One Piece is filled with unforgettable, complex villains, it also introduces some simpler antagonists like Higuma the Bear to quickly establish a clear sense of threat and moral contrast. Eiichiro Oda often crafts these early foes as particularly crude and disrespectful, making it instantly obvious who the enemy is. When the rowdy mountain bandits barge into Makino's bar, Shanks remains gracious and welcoming. He calmly explains that they've already finished every drop of liquor in the tavern while celebrating with Luffy. But Higuma isn't impressed. In a show of arrogance, he smashes a bottle of spirits, drenching Shanks in the process. And in a quiet but pivotal moment, happening just off to the side, a still sulking Luffy opens a small treasure chest the pirates had been carrying. Inside, he finds a strange, mysterious fruit, and while everyone's attention is on the unfolding confrontation, young Luffy curiously takes a bite. Now Shanks in this moment, he looks genuinely bothered, not because the liquor splashed across his clothes, but because of the unnecessary mess that now needs cleaning. Ever the gentleman, he immediately apologizes to Makino for the disruption. Higuma, eager to assert his dominance, pulls out a wanted poster and proudly declares his 8 million berry bounty. He's clearly annoyed that Shanks refuses to be provoked, so to escalate the situation further, Higuma begins trashing the place even more. Now, as I was reviewing the scene, a subtle but fascinating detail stood out. Higuma earned that bounty by taking the lives of 56 people. Whether intentional or not, the numbers 5 and 6 appear frequently around Luffy throughout the series. In Japanese, Go and Mu represent those digits, directly echoing the name of the legendary fruit that Luffy is currently eating in that very moment, the Gomu Gomu no Mi, the devil fruit that grants him the power of rubber. It's a charming early touch from Oda, planting these small numerical motifs right in chapter 1 as Luffy unknowingly swallows this fruit. After Higuma revels in the chaos that he's created, he and his mountain bandits swagger out of the bar, heading off to bully the next village. And once they're gone, Shanks and his crew burst into laughter, playfully ribbing their captain for letting the bandits walk all over him. But young Luffy is far from amused. He spins around, furious, and starts scolding the entire group. "Why are you laughing? He just made you look like fools!" Now this moment actually offers another interesting glimpse into Shanks' character. He doesn't rise to every provocation or let petty bullies rattle him. He simply smiles and tells Luffy that one day, when he's older, he might understand. It's a quiet lesson in strength and composure, one worth remembering because it will echo powerfully in Luffy's own journey later on. Still fuming though, Luffy turns to storm off. Shanks reaches out to stop him, and that's when something impossible happens. Luffy's arm stretches like rubber. The whole crew freezes in shock. Lucky Roo quickly grabs the small treasure chest and asks the fateful question, "Did you eat something that looked like this?" And Luffy's eyes go wide as the truth spills out. He really did eat that mysterious fruit. And this is our first introduction to devil fruits. Rare, oddly shaped, vibrantly colored treasures that taste utterly terrible. Whoever consumes one gains an extraordinary power tied to that fruit, but in exchange, they lose the ability to swim for the rest of their life. Both Luffy and Shanks look distraught for a moment, but there's no undoing what's been done. From that instant forward, Luffy is officially a rubber man. Later, we see him wandering through the village, excitedly showing off his new stretching abilities to anyone who will watch. Along the way, we're briefly introduced to the village mayor, and while he isn't a major player, he and Makino both reappear in the future to check in on Luffy's growing legend. Eventually, though, Luffy returns to the bar, still brooding over the earlier confrontation, but the peace doesn't last. Higuma and his bandits come storming back, clearly looking to provoke the village further. They take particular offense at Luffy's choice words off screen and decide to teach the boy a harsh lesson by beating him. The mayor and Makino rush in to protect him, but they're no match for the bandits. Just when things look bleakest, Shanks appears with a calm, confident smile. It's one of the coolest, most memorable entrances in the entire series. With the bandits causing havoc, Shanks and his crew step in to handle the situation. Just as Shanks prepares to end the confrontation, Higuma makes a desperate escape, snatching Luffy and fleeing with him. Now, this moment in the story is so iconic, so I'm gonna link a video down below so you can experience it for yourself. But moments later, out on the open sea, Higuma tosses the struggling boy overboard into the water. Because Luffy has eaten a devil fruit, he sinks helplessly, unable to swim. As Higuma laughs triumphantly at the mayhem that he's created, his victory is cut brutally short. A massive Sea King surges from the depths and swallows him whole, and it's the last time we see of Higuma the bear. Now, the Sea Kings, these enormous and fearsome creatures of the ocean, make their first dramatic appearance here, and we're gonna encounter many more of these as the story unfolds. After devouring Higuma, the Sea King turns its hungry gaze towards the drowning Luffy, and just as all seems lost, Shanks dives in without hesitation. In one of the most powerful early scenes in One Piece, he stares directly at the colossal beast and tells it to leave. The Sea King, visibly intimidated, turns and swims away, and what follows is an iconic and deeply emotional moment. As Shanks pulls Luffy to safety and tries to comfort him, the camera pulls back to reveal a heartbreaking truth. Shanks has lost his left arm in the rescue. Now, despite the pain, Shanks gently reassures the boy, it's just an arm, and there's no need to feel guilty. His warmth and strength in that moment leaves a lasting impression. But back to the shore, Shanks still refuses to let Luffy join his crew, but the young boy stands tall and makes a bold declaration. He will become a pirate one day. As a matter of fact, he will become the king of the pirates. Shanks is visibly moved by Luffy's fiery resolve, and in another unforgettable scene, Shanks removes the straw hat from his own head and places it on Luffy's. He asks the boy to take care of it and return it one day when he has become a great pirate. And with that simple, heartfelt gesture, Luffy receives the straw hat that will become his most treasured possession. 10 years later, and now an older and stronger Luffy has mastered his rubber powers. When the Sea King rises to threaten him again, he faces it without fear, and with a confident grin, he unleashes his signature attack, the Gum Gum Pistol, and he defeats the beast in one decisive strike. Standing tall on the seas, Luffy shouts his dream at the top of his lungs. He will become the king of the pirates. And with that cry, his grand adventure truly begins. Luffy's very first voyage as a pirate hits an unexpected wall when a powerful whirlpool suddenly pulls his tiny wooden boat under. With no other options, he quickly climbs into a sturdy barrel and braces himself as the sea swallows him whole. The scene then shifts to another ship where we meet two new characters, the timid young Kobe and the fearsome Captain Iron Mace, Alvida. Kobe is a little more than a chore boy on her crew, clearly out of place among these hardened pirates. Alvida is portrayed as a cruel and imposing figure who rules with an iron fist, or in this case, an iron mace, but it makes it instantly clear that she is the villain of this chapter. While sailing along, the crew spots a barrel drifting nearby and hauls it aboard, hoping it contains something valuable, or at least some good booze. To their surprise, the lid flies open and out pops Luffy with his signature carefree grin. This dramatic entrance is actually how the anime begins, while the manga presents events in this exact chronological order. Note that the manga sets many of these early moments on land, while the anime and live-action adaptation move the action onto Alvida's ship. Luffy makes short work of the surprised pirates and then pulls the nervous Koby aside for a heartfelt conversation. We learn that Koby has secretly been building a small escape boat for years, but never found the courage to leave. In his tragic story, he once went out fishing and accidentally boarded Alvida's ship instead of his own, trapping him in servitude ever since. When Luffy boldly declares his dream of becoming the king of the pirates, Koby is stunned. Through their talk, we begin to understand just how audacious and dangerous that ambition truly is. In return, Koby shyly shares his own dream to join the Navy and one day capture the very captain who has held him captive. But their conversation is interrupted when Alvida bursts in, furious, and in a cruel act, she smashes Koby's painstakingly built boat to pieces. While Koby cowers in fear, Luffy simply laughs it off. Then, with perfect timing, he unleashes his signature move, the Gum Gum Pistol, and sends Alvida flying. Luffy demands a small boat as tribute, and soon he and Koby are sailing away together towards the horizon. Their course is taking them straight to the nearest naval base so Koby can fulfill his dream. Now, early in the chapter, Alvida had mentioned a formidable prisoner being held there, which is the swordman named Roronoa Zoro. That's how you say it. Roronoa Zoro, you absolute LARPer, Logan Paul. But that being said, keep Zoro's name in mind. He's going to be really important moving forward. Word of a formidable swordsman has already begun to spread across the seas. People call him the Pirate Hunter Zoro, a demon in human form who strikes fear into the hearts of outlaws everywhere. Soon enough, Luffy and Koby arrive at the naval base. After some lighthearted banter, the two make their way to the heart of the island and quietly scale the outer wall. There, they're greeted by one of the series' most iconic early images, Roronoa Zoro, bound tightly to a wooden post and left out in the blazing sun as punishment. When Zoro notices Luffy, he wastes no time making a direct plea to be set free. Just then, a small brave girl sneaks into the base carrying rice balls that she made especially for Zoro. Though she only plays a brief role, this tender moment gives us a touching glimpse into Zoro's true character. Enter Helmeppo, Captain Morgan's spoiled and arrogant son. While neither he nor his father will be central to the grand adventure ahead, Helmeppo does pop up again later, so at the very least it's worth remembering his name. But true to his unpleasant nature, Helmeppo snatches the rice ball from the little girl, cruelly stomps them into the dirt, and laughs as she bursts into tears. When she continues crying, he heartlessly orders the Marines to grab her and toss her over the wall. Luckily, Luffy and Koby are right there to catch her and comfort her, but once Helmeppo and the guards leave, Luffy leaps over the wall to speak with Zoro directly, and Luffy plants the idea that he would like someone like Zoro on his crew, though it's clear that Zoro has no intention to. In a quiet but revealing moment, Zoro, still tied up and starving, asks Luffy to pick up the mud-covered rice balls and feed them to him. After eating every last bite, he gently tells Luffy to let the girl know that the food was delicious. It's a small gesture, but it speaks volumes about Zoro's kindness and honor. Later, Luffy learns the shocking truth. Helmeppo never planned to release Zoro after his sentence. The swordsman was secretly scheduled for execution. Furious at the betrayal, Luffy decides that it's time to confront Helmeppo and give him a piece of his mind. Helmeppo, still smarting from the lesson Luffy gave him, runs straight to his father, Captain Axe-Hand Morgan, the commanding officer of the naval base. Now, while Morgan makes for a memorable figure in this early arc, he remains largely inconsequential to the larger tale of One Piece, so if you're curious about his whole story, this is a great section to enjoy in the manga or the anime. Meanwhile, Luffy returns to Zoro with a straightforward offer. I'll untie you right now if you agree to join my crew. Zoro, ever the proud swordsman, turns him down once again. He explains that he's already on his own important mission and can't simply abandon it. Luffy, never one to miss a chance to lighten the mood, grins and teases him, "If you're really a swordsman, then where are your swords?" Luffy then proceeds to sweeten the deal. If Luffy retrieves his precious swords, Zoro can join up with the crew. Zoro still isn't convinced though, but it's clear that his resolve is beginning to waver a bit. Back inside the base, Helmeppo's attempt to sick his father on Luffy doesn't really go as planned. Captain Morgan shows little respect for his own son or the Marines under his command, treating them with open disdain. Suddenly, the commotion Luffy is causing draws Morgan's full attention. In the middle of the uproar, a brave but nervous Kobe decides to seize the moment and try freeing Zoro himself. Unfortunately, he's caught off guard though, and a gunshot rings out. Luffy quickly corners Helmeppo and gets him to confess where Zoro's swords are being kept. Without hesitation, Helmeppo reveals that they're in his room. Meanwhile, Kobe realizes that he's been shot, and in that frightening moment, he tells Zoro the painful truth. Helmeppo never intended to free him. The entire month of punishment was a lie. Zoro was scheduled to be executed. Desperate, Kobe pleads with him to team up with Luffy, even if it means Zoro doesn't become a pirate, just so they can escape the base alive. Luffy dashes to Helmeppo's room and finds 3 swords displayed on the wall. Not knowing which ones belong to Zoro, he simply takes all 3 and races back just as Captain Morgan lines up a firing squad. Right before the Marines open fire on Zoro and Kobe, a quick flashback takes us into Zoro's past. We meet a young Zoro training at a small dojo alongside his eternal rival, Kuina. Both are incredibly gifted, but Kuina consistently proves to be the stronger swordsman at this stage. We're also introduced to Zoro's old sensei, a character who holds deeper significance for dedicated fans of the series' rich lore. But in this flashback, Zoro and Kuina duel constantly, each driven by the same towering dream: to become the world's greatest swordsman. Kuina has defeated him an astonishing 2,001 times. But one evening, after yet another loss, they share a heartfelt conversation. Kuina confides that she fears that she will never reach her full potential because she is a girl. Her father once told her that women can't become master swordsmen, but Zoro comforts her, reminding her of all of the times she has beaten him, and makes a sincere vow that one day he will defeat her. The two shake hands and promise that together one of them will surely become the greatest swordsman alive. Kuina smiles with her spirits lifted. But One Piece backstories often carry deep sorrow. The very next scene reveals that Kuina has tragically passed away from falling down the stairs. Now, the exact circumstances remain unclear, and fans have long discussed different possibilities, but what really matters is the profound impact on Zoro. Heartbroken, the young Zoro approaches his sensei and asks to take Kuina's sword, the Wado Ichimonji, so he can carry her dream forward. And with that blade in hand, he swears to honor her memory and become the world's greatest swordsman. And this is why he initially turned down Luffy. His own path and promise come first. Back in the present, just as the firing squad prepares to shoot, Luffy leaps in front of Zoro and Kobe. His rubber body easily catches every bullet and bounces them straight back at the Marines. With a confident grin, Luffy delivers his bold declaration. He is going to become the king of the pirates. He then hands Zoro his 3 swords, and in this thrilling moment, we're introduced to Zoro's legendary fighting style, Santoryu, the 3-sword style. Impressed by Luffy's courage and resolve, Zoro finally agrees to become a pirate. With Zoro finally free, a lively battle breaks out. Zoro unleashes his extraordinary 3-sword style against the Marines, moving with breathtaking skill and power. Turning to Luffy, he boldly declares his dream, that he will become the world's greatest swordsman. Luffy laughs warmly and replies that it only makes sense. After all, the world's greatest swordsman should sail under the future king of the pirates. Anything less would reflect poorly on him. Working together, Luffy and Zoro quickly defeat both Helmeppo and the tyrannical Captain Axehand Morgan, and the entire naval base erupts in celebration, overjoyed to finally be free from Morgan's cruel rule. Shortly afterwards, Zoro collapses, not from injury, but simply probably from hunger, and the trio heads to the nearby tavern where they enjoy a hearty meal. Between bites, Luffy announces their next destination, the Grand Line. Kobe, ever the caring friend, tries to talk some sense into them, worried for their safety, though he won't be joining their journey. Luffy reassures him with a bright smile that they will always be friends no matter where the sea takes them. Moved by their courage, Kobe tells them that watching Luffy and Zoro fight for their dreams has inspired him to stand up for what he believes in. Just then, a group of Marines arrive at the tavern. They express gratitude for removing Captain Morgan, but explain that they can't simply allow pirates to remain on the base. Understanding the situation and knowing Kobe's dream of joining the Navy, Luffy and Zoro prepare to play along and act as strangers. Yet, in classic Luffy fashion, he blurts out the truth instead. In a powerful moment of resolve, Kobe steps forward and punches Luffy square in the face. Both Luffy and Zoro look at him with clear respect. Luffy grins and returns the punch, sealing their unspoken farewell. Kind of. After the brief scuffle, the Marines conclude that the two pirates and the boy are not allies. They order Luffy and Zoro to leave, but then Kobe steps up and formally asks to enlist in the Navy. The lieutenant, impressed by his courage, accepts him on the spot. As Luffy and Zoro set sail, Kobe and the Marines gather at the shore to bid them a heartfelt goodbye. And with that, the Romance Dawn arc comes to a satisfying close. Luffy stands at the bow of their little boat, shouting joyfully into the open sky that they're on their way to the Grand Line. With his first crewmate, Zoro, by his side, the two pirates sail into the horizon. Now, before we finish up this first episode of One Piece Wednesday, I do want to leave you with a few thoughtful questions for you to keep in the back of your mind as the story continues. And these are the kind of details that makes One Piece so special. These really small moments that grow into something much bigger. Question number 1, what is the true significance of Shanks losing his left arm? Question number 2, why was Shanks at Luffy's village at that time? Question number 3, why was he carrying the gum gum fruit? Question number 4, why is the straw hat that Shanks gave to Luffy so important? And question number 5, why did the Sea King turn and run away from just one single stare from Shanks? Now trust, most if not all of these questions will be answered in good time. I just thought I'd give them to you just so you can keep them in the back of your head. They tie beautifully into the overarching story, and trust me, the payoff is totally worth it. I'll also leave some helpful links in the description as a little bit of enjoyable homework for you guys. Be sure to check out the very first opening theme, We Are, as well as some other important moments like Shanks losing his arm or Shanks confronting Higuma the bear. Those scenes are absolutely timeless, and it would really suck if you just watched my videos and didn't get to at least experience those scenes for yourself. But yeah, I think that's everything for today's episode. We covered a lot of ground, and I really hope that you guys are starting to feel the magic of this incredible journey, but trust, it gets so much better. It is honestly, me personally, this is one of my favorite shows of all time, if not my favorite show of all time, which is why I got a giant and growing collection of just about everything One Piece related. Now, for those of you who are already caught up with the manga, please, no spoilers in the comments. I want the new fans to experience everything completely fresh and enjoy this journey on their own. But thank you guys so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this episode of One Piece Wednesday, feel free to drop a like, leave a comment if there's something that I missed without spoiling anything for the future of the story. Our next stop is going to be Orange Town. In addition, I forgot to mention to you guys that I'm actually doing some smaller reviews for a whole bunch of new shows that I'm watching for the first time. So if you're interested in seeing my cave dive series, feel free to hit the link and check them out. But yeah, that's everything that I got for you guys. So you guys stay beautiful, and I will see you in the next video. You still here?